Okay, hello, welcome to Jazz Smack. The Jazz made another trade, and John Collins is going out, and in return, the Jazz receive Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, and a future second-round pick. Now, we all know why the Jazz did this. We all anticipated this move coming at some point, whether it was this offseason or sometime during the season prior to the trade deadline. We could all see John Collins being moved elsewhere. The Jazz are doing this purposely to try and free up minutes for their younger players. That was the whole idea. That's been the idea with all the moves they've made this offseason. I mean, they shipped out Colin and actually had to attach a second-round pick to move that contract along. So they did that. They didn't get anything of value in return. They also shipped out, obviously, they bought out Jordan Clarkson, so he's elsewhere now. He signed in New York, and that was an untradeable contract. We knew we weren't going to get anything in return, but the point is we don't have any players coming back in any of these moves that require minutes next year. All these guys, including the Nurkic trade, Nurkic doesn't require minutes next year. I think Hardy will play him some because he is a 7-foot guy who's 30 years old and if Walker needs to sit to get rest or if he's injured or sprains an ankle, whatever, Nurkic can fill in with those minutes if they're playing some big burly center that they don't want to put Kyle Filipowski in as center to play and to get beat up by some larger guy. So maybe Nurkic could fill a role in that specific instance. But he doesn't need to play. That's the point. He doesn't need to get minutes next year. He can sit on the bench and have DNPs, and it's not a big deal. If Nurkic doesn't like that, so be it. The Jazz don't owe Nurkic anything other than, they have to pay him his salary, but they don't owe him playing time. And they don't feel like they need to give him playing time. All those minutes that our outgoing guys received can now go to the rookies we have on the roster and also the first and second year and now going into their third year players. All those minutes, that's where we're going to be distributed. So the only veteran presence we have currently on the roster is Lowry. From all those from those three previous Hardy years, we have Lowry left. That's it. That's the veteran presence. And obviously, Walker is an older player now. He's considered an older player now. He's going into his fourth season. He's considered an older player. Is Walker an older player? No, but he's still a developing player. But on this roster, he's an older player. So it's going to be interesting, and I'm happy they did this now. It's better off now than if they weren't going to get any assets in return for John Collins, you might as well just do it now. And I wish they actually had done this earlier in previous years. If they weren't going to get assets for Colin, if they weren't going to get assets for John, if they weren't going to get assets for Jordan, I wish they would have just moved on from those three players previously, because I think it would have been better off for those three guys, and I think it would have been better off for the Jazz franchise. Yes, the Jazz need some veteran presences around to stabilizing in the locker room, on the bench, and offering stability in the locker room, on the bench, etc. But for those guys to get actual minutes and the need to play those guys minutes because they are still decent NBA players, we don't want the Jazz. That's not what the Jazz want. That's not what the Jazz need. And unfortunately, Hardy played some of those guys the last few years rather than just letting him, the Jazz just parting ways with them and letting him be on their way. So we'll see how it turns out. Now, let's look at it from, we're going to look at some statistics of the people involved in these trades. But first, let's look at it from the Clippers' perspective. The Clippers are getting a good player. John Collins is a good basketball player. He's a mediocre defender, but offensively, his shooting numbers are terrific. He's a really good lob threat. His mid-range game is good. His three-point percentage is really good. His free throw percentage is really good. John Collins is a quality NBA player, quality NBA power forward who can play spot minutes at a backup center or, against a smaller lineup. He's good. And this helps the Clippers a lot. This helps balance their roster out. Now, they also, in the offseason, the Clippers acquired Brook Lopez. So they got a three-point shooting center. And that's pretty much what Brook Lopez is at 37 years old. He's a three-point shooting center. He's going to rebound very little. He has been a really good defensive center in the past in terms of blocked shots, but at this point, at 37 years old, I think that's asking a lot for him to be that type of center again. I think he's going to play spot minutes. I think Brook Lopez is in line to play spot minutes as a three-point shooting big, but John Collins can certainly play more than that. I mean, John Collins is a quality player. He played 30 minutes a game last year with those really good percentages, and he's just a good player. And yes, he's not a terrific defensive player, but he's a mediocre defensive player. He grabbed 8 rebounds a game last year in 30 minutes a game. I mean, he's decent. He's decent across the board. He's a good guy in the locker room. He's a good guy on the bench. I mean, off the court, he's a good guy. I mean, he's just a terrific this is a terrific acquisition. Norman Powell going out of LA is a loss. Norman Powell's a very productive player. He's a good shooter, decent defender. Again, he's been productive for a long time, and this helps the Miami Heat. The loss hurts the Clippers, but it helps the Heat. But in terms of roster balance, the Clippers are in a better position. Obviously, the success or failure of the Clippers largely depends on the health of Kawhi Leonard, and that's been the case for the last several years. Kawhi, Paul George, injury issues. But let's assume that Kawhi has decent help. This helps them. This acquisition of John Collins definitely helps them, and hopefully puts them in a position where they can do something in the playoffs and have a better opportunity to win some games in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens with that franchise. But I think this is a good move from the LA standpoint. And like I said, with the Heat, with Norman Powell, this gives them certainly scoring punch in the backcourt, which they absolutely needed. They also lost Duncan Robinson this offseason, a floor spacer. Norman Powell can certainly space the floor. So he's a good. This is also considering what the Miami Heat gave up in terms of players with Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love. I mean, Kevin Love's on his last NBA legs at this point, and Kyle Anderson did not play a whole lot of minutes. So Norman Powell is certainly a step in the right direction from a viable NBA player perspective, a player who can actually is a plus player. I mean, he is certainly that still. I mean, I think he's 32 years old, so he's still, he's right around the prime of his basketball abilities. Yes, he's on the downward slide of his athletic abilities, but in terms of his basketball skills and his ability to understand the game, he's right there where he still can be really productive for the Miami Heat. And so this is a really good move for them. So let's look at the numbers of John Collins and the other players really quick. So John Collins played 30.5 minutes for the Jazz last year. He scored 19 points. He took 13 shots a game, 53% from the field, 39.9 from three, 85% from the free throw line, 8.2 rebounds, 2 assists, 2.6 turnovers, 1 steal, 1 block. So obviously really solid numbers. And one of the things for the Jazz, when they acquired Collins for the 23-24 season, it was like a rebuilding his value project. So they acquired him when Atlanta was trying to trade him, and they couldn't find a trade suitor, so the Jazz traded a second-round pick for him. So that was I know what the Jazz were trying to do. They were trying to acquire him, build his value, and hopefully have an asset that they could trade for other assets. Now, obviously, that didn't work out in this case. But he certainly, from John Collins' standpoint, and I'm happy for John Collins, he certainly rebuilt his value, because when the Jazz traded for him, he had a significant finger issue that really hurt his ability to play the game effectively, especially from a shooting standpoint. That last year in Atlanta, in 22-23, I mean, he played 71 games, 30 minutes a game, 10 field goal attempts a game, shot 51% from the field, but his three-point percentage was 29. So it was a little more than 10 percentage points less than this past season with the Jazz in that 22-23 season. So, and his free throw percentage was 80.3 that year. And so his numbers were really down. And they've improved immensely. He certainly is he's once again a good NBA player, a viable NBA player that can help you win games in both the regular season and the playoffs. So from that standpoint, I think John Collins' time in Utah worked out in his favor, even though he wasn't able to play in the postseason. The Jazz weren't trying to win games. I think for rebuilding his value to somebody in the NBA to where he can get other contracts beyond this year. I know that money is tight with this second apron problem, with all these second apron salary issues. But next offseason, I anticipate him. I think he'll have a really good year at the Clippers, and I anticipate him getting another decent contract next offseason. I don't think he's going to make anything close to what he made this year. I think he's getting paid $28 million this year. I don't foresee that, but I think he's going to get a decent contract, and so I'm happy for John Collins. He seems like a genuinely good dude, and this is one of the things about the Jazz. The Jazz have generally they've brought in guys who are generally decent dudes, and that's a good thing. So I commend the organization for doing that. John Collins is a really quality guy. So let's go on to Norman. So Norman last year, this past season, he played 34 minutes a game, 13 field goal attempts per game, shot 47% from the field, 35% from three, 78% from the line, 2.4 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1.7 turnovers, and 1.1 steals, 0.3 blocks. So, like I said, those are solid numbers for Norman Powell and the Heat. If he continues with these exact numbers, that's a really good get for the Miami Heat. And I know that his 3-point field goal percentage was down this past season at 35, and he shot much higher than that in some previous seasons. So I do anticipate actually those 3-point percentage numbers improving this coming season in Miami as well. I think he'll have a better year shooting the basketball, but it's a good get from the Miami Heat overall. I mean, this is really, really solid for them, and really helps with their backcourt scoring and their backcourt depth. And obviously they have Davion Mitchell there and Hero there, so Norman Powell fits in well there. So let's go on to so Kyle Anderson from the Jazz standpoint, like last year, 16 minutes a game. In total, he played 18 minutes a game in Miami, and he was traded mid-year, and he played 15 minutes a game with Golden State. So again, this is a player that does not demand a bunch of playing time. That's why the Jazz brought him in, so that they don't have a veteran player who needs playing time, and he certainly qualifies as that if he remains on the roster into the season. So the other guy I wanted to look at really quickly from the Jazz playing time perspective is Nurkic. So if we also look at Nurkic's numbers from this past season, I mean, he was traded. He started out the season with Phoenix. He was traded to Charlotte. So with Phoenix, he was playing in 25 games. He played 24 minutes a game. And with Charlotte, he played 18 minutes a game. So his numbers decreased, but he still did play 26 games at 18 minutes a game. But like I said, his value as a big minute guy in the NBA at this point in time. He doesn't require minutes. Like if the Jazz just want to sit him, they can sit him. That's not the issue. He may have some complaints about that, but I don't think the Jazz are going to completely sit him. I think there's going to be times when even if like Walker's injured or whatnot, I think Nurkic will play some time, and he might get spot minutes in a backup role to Walker, but he's certainly not a starting level guy. You don't have to play him 30 minutes a game. You don't have to play him 20 minutes a game. He's not that guy. The Jazz don't have any obligation to play him those minutes. That absolutely not. So that's why it's a win for bringing him in. He just doesn't require minutes. So anyway, I think that's all I have to comment on at this time. Just a quick thing this morning because that news came down with the John Collins trade, and it's interesting. And there's also a summer league game, another summer league game number 2 in Salt Lake tonight. So we'll see what the young guys do in that second game, and hopefully they play well. Hopefully it's an interesting game. We'll see what happens. But anyway, for those watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And you can also follow us on X at Jazz Smack. And we will talk to everybody later.